Hey, welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. So this week we're going to be talking about 5G phones and how Linux is going to be removing F-bombs from the Linux kernel. So let's go ahead and start with the first bit of news with something that I think everybody knew was coming, and that is 5G phones. And so Qualcomm is stating that in 2019, every Android manufacturer will have 5G, and Apple, of course, is going to be late to the party because they usually are. And secondly, Apple is actually in a patent dispute with Qualcomm over the technologies that they use in their phone. And so that's why a lot of the iPhones now have an Intel chip in there versus Qualcomm's. Now, this is going to be a huge thing for many reasons. The first obvious reason is we're going to get way faster speeds. But the second reason is Qualcomm's dominance in this area. Not only did they produce the majority of chips that are inside Android phones and many other devices, but also they own the majority of all the patents when it comes to communication technology. So this is a 2-for-1 punch for Qualcomm because there really isn't any other big competitor to this besides Intel. And even if other manufacturers are not using the Snapdragon chipsets, I'm pretty sure they're going to have to pay some type of patent licensing fee to Qualcomm for the communication technology that they use. And so this will be a pretty big thing. And I wasn't really sure of how fast 5G was. And so I actually had to look that up. And so what they're estimating here is 5G will allow you to get from 1 gigabits to up to 10 gigabits per second of download speed. And I'm not sure how fast the upload speed is, but this is going to be insane. Because with 4G, most of the times it'll max out at 100 megabits. And they've also had some that goes over 300 megabits in certain countries. And then if you compare that to 3G, it is absolutely laughable. And so if you get up to 10 gigabytes per second, you can imagine what you can download there. It's absolutely insane. That's like a bazillion times faster than what I have with my measly 30 megs download on my home internet. So this is going to be pretty crazy. But you know, technologies like this is going to take a long time because it does require all of the major cellular networks to have the towers and the capacity to actually take care of this. Because in countries like the United States, even though we do have fast speeds, it's nothing compared to South Korea, which I think is the reigning king when it comes to internet speeds. Most people in that country have around 23 megabits download per second, but it's pretty much way faster for the majority of people who can afford it. And here in May, South Korea actually had 2.5 gigabits download per second. And so more than likely, this country will be the first one to adopt 5G. And so this is going to be pretty interesting to see what people do with these types of insane speeds. And I'm also interested to see what it's going to do to the price of phones as well. Because, you know, most people are now actually used to paying $1,000 for flagship Android phones and obviously for iPhones. So I'm wondering if 5G phones are going to usher in an even higher level of entry, meaning that if you want a 5G phone, you're going to have to pay $1,000 minimum, even if it's not a flagship phone, just to get in whenever this rolls out initially. And so that's the first bit of news, and that's good timing for me because my Android phone is now like almost 4 years old, so it's due for an upgrade soon. So next year would be my year of an upgrade to a 5G phone. Hopefully, it's not going to be too expensive where I can't afford it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the second bit of news. Linux replacing F words in the kernel code with hugs. Yes, you heard that right, with hugs. And so this is all a result of the recent code of conduct that was actually released in October. It's a very controversial piece of conduct. And this is something that really involved Linus Torvalds and the whole Linux and open source community. And this is something that is still in a state of controversy. And I could really see both sides of it. You know, in the one sense, this really, you know, makes me think about a lot of censorship on here. And I know it could get really political, but if they start like, you know, like patching words or replacing words, right now they're curse words, but what happens if they decide to remove other words? That's really something that's really plausible. And at the same time, if you do remove these words, some of the comments that you had in the code might not make any more sense. Like this one right here, some Athlon laptops have really hugged PST tables. If you don't see why, please stay the hug away from my code. Only Sun could take such nice parts and hug up the programming interface. Now in this case, this is funny. But imagine if this was actually a lot of code that you actually had these words in there, or maybe later on they might use it to replace other words, and now your commenting will really not make any sense. And if it does go into the code itself, that's going to make it even worse. So that's the first part that I see. I mean, not only is it censorship in a lot of ways, and also taking away a lot of freedoms that you have in open source, but at the same time, technically, it might not make sense in certain areas. And then on the other side, well, there's really not many F words in the code itself. So right here, I think Intel looked this up, and it was actually Intel, a developer from Intel, who actually proposed this. And so they were saying in this 3.3 million lines of code, they only had 33 instances of the F words. And so that's pretty much next to nothing. And so it's not used that much, but I still really think that, you know, if this becomes a standard, then what else can they replace and, you know, control in the long run? And that's where my concern is. I am not myself really involved with the Linux community, but I have done coding before, and I kind of felt that that was one of the last places that you actually have a lot of freedom, you know, unless you have really strict coding codes for where you work. But I mean, just like for you individually, you know, I think that's a lot of place that I think a lot of people, especially people who program, they really do feel like they have a lot of freedom because it's their own. And since it is in the code base, people are not going to see it, you know, unless they actually can see the code or they're programming themselves. And so, yeah, I'm not really for this at all. But unfortunately, this looks like this is where things are heading, not only in the Linux community, but pretty much a lot of communities out there, even ones that I thought would be quote unquote safe. And so if you had any thoughts on the news that I talked about this week, whether it's upcoming 5G phones or hugs, be sure to leave that in the comments area below. And as always, if you did get value out of these videos, share, like, and subscribe. Hey geeks, if you are a creative geek like me and you wanted to learn how to create content on YouTube and other places on the internet, then check out my Go Content Creators Group, where you'll get access to 30 videos plus additional content for all the creative geeks out there. And the best part of it is, all of this is free. Simply head over to the link below, check out my page, and sign up for my Go Content Creators Group. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com, and I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.